Welcome to part 2 in this video series where I'm going to show you how to wholesale a house from start to finish. On the part 1 video, I showed how I negotiated and structured the deal live with the seller. Now, if you missed that video, stop right now and go watch it and then come back to this video. I'll put the link in the description below so you can watch that video now. Okay, since this is a creative financing deal, on this part 2 video, I'm going to show you how I crunch the numbers using my creative financing calculator. I'll explain in detail how to analyze subject to deals and exactly what makes this a good deal so you know what to look for when wholesaling creative deals. But first, if you're new here, my name is Jerry Norton. I make millions of dollars a year wholesaling and flipping houses, and here on my YouTube channel, I show you how to do the same. So if you want to be a flipping genius like me and live your dream life, subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. As I've been saying over and over again here on my YouTube channel, wholesaling creative finance deals is the hottest strategy right now. So if you're into wholesaling, it's imperative that you learn how. In fact, on this deal, we're paying over the market value for the property, but it doesn't matter because investors are more interested in the terms than the price. You'll see what I mean. So here's what I want to do now. First, download my creative financing calculator for free. Just go to creativefinancingcalculator.com. Then I want you to open it up and follow along with me. Pause the video and fill out your version along with me so you get comfortable using it. Okay, assuming you've done that, let's get started. Okay, so once you pull up the spreadsheet, make sure that you look at the tabs on the bottom. There's one for Master Seller Finance or Master Sub 2. And what I recommend you do is you create a new sheet every time you do a new deal. So once you have the Sub 2 sheet pulled up, since that's what our deal is, the first thing that I like to do is I like to get my head around the revenue. So total revenue on the rental income. And you'll notice over here you've got a unit mix for long-term or overnight or short-term. So in this case, we found out that the long-term rent would be $2,200. However, though, if you go to AirDNA, it's showing that the overnight rental with a 50% occupancy is about $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month, which is incredible. So that's really phenomenal. So if I put over here, it's a 4-bedroom, $334 a night at a 50% occupancy, gives us an average daily rate of $167 or $5,010 monthly. So I just rounded it to $5,000. So then I carry that over to my rent analysis, and you'll notice here that I've got a lot of operating expenses. So management fee, reserves, insurance, taxes, vacancy, which vacancy is already built into short term. You got utilities here, HOA, and so on. So clearly there's a lot of fees involved with operating rental properties. In this instance, for now, I'm going to just leave that all blank. Now there's 2 thoughts here. One thought would be let the buyer, analyze his own operating expense because everyone's going to operate differently. Maybe somebody has a management service, maybe someone self-manages. So some of that is subjective to who the operator is. For right now, I'm going to leave that blank, but typically a good rule of thumb is that your operating expenses are going to be about 30% of gross revenue. So your net operating income should be about 70%, right? So if you take 30% to cover all the operating expenses, then that leaves you with 70%. So just kind of a good rule of thumb with rental property. For now, though, I'm going to just leave it blank. We can come back to that if we'd like. Right now, what I want to do is I want to go over and I want to plug in the numbers on what we do know based on what we negotiated with that seller. So we know here, if I go over to the subject to purchase, we know we've got a 225 sub 2 loan balance. That's what we're taking over. And I'm rounding these numbers. There's a $25,000 reinstatement. No commissions, closing fees, I'm going to leave blank. Sometimes I'll put closing fees in there, but that's, again, subjective. Depends if there's a transaction coordinator and just how much the fees are. A lot of times when we market the property, we'll say, here's your numbers plus closing fees and TC. Because we don't really know exactly those numbers. I could plug in a range. Sometimes I'll put in $3,000, $3,500, or whatever I think they might be. Just be clear, if you leave it blank, then you need to make sure that when you market your property, you did not include that in your financial analysis. Same with the management fees or the operating expenses. Okay, so we're gonna leave that blank. I'm gonna put right now a $15,000 assignment. Now, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15, maybe we get 20. I don't really know yet at this point in time, but 15 is what I'm shooting for. Keep watching and we'll see what we end up getting here. And we also know that the cash to the seller is $30,000. That's what we agreed on. No improvements are needed. It's in fantastic condition. And so there's one other thing here that we're going to put down here. We're going to put a solar loan. So see this line item here, solar loan, that balance is about $48,000. So if I take my total acquisition and add all of this up, including my assignment fee, then that's coming to $343,000. Now, on one hand, if you're thinking about this, this is way overpriced for the market value. We established that market value was around $300,000. So why would someone be interested in taking over a deal when your total acquisition is $343,000? So you're overpaying the current value. And the reason is because hopefully the terms are attractive enough to be appealing to somebody anyway. And I'll explain this as we go through here, a few more things. So that makes our entry fee, not counting closing fees, that makes our entry fee $70,000, right? Because they got $25,000 to reinstate, $15,000 for the assignment, and $30,000 to the seller. So not counting closing fees, $70,000, which $70,000 is 20% of the total acquisition. So that's a ding against us right there. 20% is really high. I really try to stay 15% or lower is a great structure. 10% is phenomenal as a total entry fee. Anything under 10% is like over the top amazing. 20% is not so great. 25% is like the ultimate. Past 25% and it's bad news, right? It's gonna be really hard to dispo your deal. We'll come back to that in a second, but let's go down here to our debt service. So we've got our $225 loan balance. We've got our interest rate of 2.875. That is a 30-year. There's about 27 years remaining. Now this was a big deal. I had to really push for this off the call. So the seller, when we were communicating after the call you watched in part one, he said, hey, what's the time frame on this? And I said, there is no time frame. And he's like, man, I don't want to be holding on to this loan for 30 years or 27 more years. And I said to him, I said, look, if there's a balloon on this deal, it's a no deal. I already have a high entry fee. I'm buying it for more than its current value with that solar loan. So I have to have no balloon. He signed, so we have the deal at no balloon. Now balloon means that even though it's amortized over 30 years, if there's a balloon, let's say in 5 years, then it's due in full in 5 years, whatever the balance is. You would have to refinance or sell the property to pay off the loan. So a lot of seller finance and sub-2 loans, structures like this, creative financing, have balloons. So the two things right now I've got really going for me on this deal, a couple things. One is it's a nice brick home, nice neighborhood, needs no work, so it's mint condition, you know, Class A type property, and it's got a 2.8 fixed rate, so super low rate and no balloon. So what I'm hoping that those amazing features of this structure are going to outweigh the high entry fee and the negative equity purchase. Okay, so let's keep going here. The PITI on this property, so I included here principal and interest and taxes and insurance. Sometimes I'll just call this PI, the principal and interest, and then I'll put my insurance and taxes over here because that could be looked at as an operating expense. But for simplicity on this one, I'm just gonna put PITI, which is, again, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. And what's crazy is in this state in Texas, property taxes are crazy high. Like the PI on this loan is like 900 and something. And so there's like $700 between taxes and insurance. And then I have here our second position solar loan for $48,000. That's got a 2.99 interest rate. It was a 25-year loan. And I think there's like 22 years left on that loan. Now that comes to 238. Even though that math, it should be a little bit lower. He did some kind of like, took some money up front or something, or they had to add something on. I don't quite know, but I do know his monthly payment is $238. So that means our total debt service is $1,877 monthly or $22,524 annual. So then that carries over here to our cash flow analysis where we have our operating income. Now that's gross, I didn't take out anything. So let's go ahead here and just for funsies, let's put some operating expenses in here. If I just add in over here under other, $1,750 a month, that would be management fees and reserves and all kinds of other things. That brings me to about 65% net operating income. Well, I carry my operating income down $3,250, take away my debt service of $1,877, gives me net income. So that would be all my operating expenses plus my debt service gives me a net positive cash flow of $1,373, which is phenomenal, right? That's incredible. That's another really attractive part about this deal. That's given me a 24% cash on cash return. Again, anything over 20 is absolutely phenomenal. I try to be above 10% on cash, and it's got a depreciation write-off of over $11,000. Okay, so what makes this possibly an attractive deal? Why would an investor want this deal? Great property, great location, all brick house, doesn't need any work. Super high cash flow using it for overnight rental. Super low interest rate, 2.8 fixed, no balloon. So those are the things that are really good, that are very attractive about this deal. What's gonna hurt me, and I know it's gonna come up in conversation when we're trying to wholesale this deal, is, man, I'm overpaying for the property. I'm paying more than the current value. And oh man, 20% as my entry fee is a little high. So those are gonna be some things that I've gotta overcome. So how do I overcome that? I highlight all the benefits, and I look for an investor who's willing to overlook a couple things that aren't so great for a bunch more things that are really great. And so this would be provided to our investors when we go to dispo this deal. So it's one of the things that we provide in our marketing package when we go to dispo this deal. All right, now again, remember, it's a scoring system, so it's never just one thing, right? So a lot of times where people mess up with creative finance, they look at only one or two things and then they don't look at a couple other things. You kind of need to look at all of the things. And in my mind, there are 10 things really that I want to look at. The balloon, the interest rate, the net operating income, the price compared to value, right? So do I have any equity? The entry fee, does it need any rehab? What's the cash on cash return? Do I have a good amortization? Do I have a good write-off, a depreciation write-off? And then my good location, the class. So that's 10 things that you want to look at every time you structure a creative deal. And again, it's kind of like a scoring system. If you can score a 10 here and a 10 there, maybe you can offset a 3 here and a 4 there. And all together, do you have enough going for your deal to where an investor will want to buy that and pay your assignment fee? Now, if you found this sub-2 breakdown analysis helpful, leave a comment and say, Jerry, you're a flipping genius. And for those of you following along in this video series, I'm gonna put all the videos into a playlist, and I'll put the link in the description below. Next, in part 3 in this video series, I'm gonna break down the sub-2 contract, including a call I did with the seller where we went over it together. Now, as soon as that's available, I'll get it added to the playlist, and you can click right there on your screen to watch it now, and I'll see you on the next video.